Hello viewers and welcome back to TV Box Top, the channel for the best reviews in TV boxes and accessories. On today's video, I feature a TV box from the developers of Topleo, and this is their latest model for 2020 called the Topleo i96 Pro. This box runs on the Amlogic S905X3 CPU on 4GB of RAM and 32GB of internal storage. Please note, there's an older 2017 model and this is the latest 2020 model. Also, there's an all-winner CPU model and an Amlogic S905W model. So I urge you to be mindful of this after watching this video as to ensure that it's the right model if you intend to purchase. So up next, I have a full review with live demonstrations, and let's see what the i96 Pro has to offer. So stay tuned, you have that right after this. So I'm back, and in the box you have the i96 Pro TV box itself. You get a wireless air mouse remote with voice control and Google Assistant feature. You get one HDMI cable, a 5V 2A DC power adapter, and that's it. It appears mine is missing the user's manual. Not that it matters, I don't read them anyway. Let's now look at its design and ports. The body is made of plastic with a unique semi-glossy surface design to the top. To the rear of the box, you have one HDMI port, one Ethernet LAN port, one optical audio port, one AV port, one IR extender port, and the DC power input. To one side, you have one USB 3.0 port, one USB 2.0, and a micro SD card reader. It's blank to the other side. To the front, you have an LED display, and below the box there are no ventilation holes. So I'll set this up on my TV and continue. So I'm back, and to start the box, you have a splash screen for a couple of seconds. Then you're taken directly to the launcher. So here we are at the launcher, and it's a new layout, one I've never seen before. The concept, however, remains the same, where you have these larger main buttons that cannot be changed, and this one has one additional shortcut. At the bottom here, you have shortcuts to access the app section, a home button, and a settings shortcut. This launcher does not have a navigation bar or status bar. This firmware has the following features. Under Droid settings, you have 4K display up to 2160p at 60Hz. HDR display settings, Dolby Vision settings, HDMI CEC options, audio output options, and power key definition options. Under device preferences, you have your core system settings and digital audio output options. This firmware has no root switch, hardware monitor settings, built-in screen rotation, or navigation bar and status bar settings. In the app section, these are the apps that come pre-installed. They have included Kodi, Netflix, and an official version of Miracast. So I'll pause for a moment to install some additional apps of my own and continue. So I'm back and I've installed all my apps. Here you can see that I've installed an alternative navigation bar called Menu Button. This allows me to navigate with a mouse pointer as well as multitask between apps. To learn how to install and set up this alternative navigation bar, see the link to my tutorial in the description below this video. So first, let's have a look at its system and hardware information. The manufacturer of this box is Droid Logic, and it runs on 4GB of DDR3 RAM and 32GB of internal storage. What is shown here is the remainder after the Android installation and all the apps installed. The Bluetooth version is 4.2 according to the product description. The CPU, which is the Amlogic S905X3, is a quad-core ARM Cortex-A55 CPU clocked at 1.9 GHz configured in 32-bit mode, with support for only 32-bit ABIs, which limits it to only 32-bit applications. Its display is powered by the ARM Mali G31 GPU with a refresh rate of 60 Hz and open a GLES version 3.2, which is good for gaming. On the network, it shows that you have dual band Wi-Fi support and the 5 GHz band is supported. Under Android, it shows that the operating system is Android 9 Pie and it shows that the box is rooted. The operating temperature ranges between 60 and 75 degrees, which falls into the category of overheating, and this could be problematic because the bottom panel has no ventilation holes. So I popped off the bottom cover because it has no screws and applied a cooling fan, and the temperature dropped to 45 degrees. Imagine that. For a video on this cooling fan and how to apply it, see the link in the description below this video. On the codecs, it comes with all the decoders for the playback of 4K HDR videos, and I also see that they have included Dolby Vision and DTS HD decoder in this list. So that's it for system and hardware information, and let's now have a look at its benchmarks. First, the results of the test performed on its RAM copy speed and its internal storage read and write speeds. The new i96 Pro has a RAM copy speed of 3210 MB per second. Its internal storage has a read speed of 131 MB per second and a write speed of 75. These are some OK scores that are consistent with other S905X3 boxes. Next, I got some really interesting results from the Wi-Fi bands and the Ethernet LAN speed tests. After all tests were completed and double-checked to confirm, I am happy to report that the box achieved the maximum bandwidth on both Wi-Fi bands and on the LAN port. This means you can achieve maximum bandwidth of your network on whichever medium you choose. Some may argue that it's not possible to achieve over 60 megabits per second on the 2.4 GHz band, but I can assure you I've seen it many times before in other models and this box does it as well, so it's not an error. In the Antutu benchmark, it scored 76,550. This is a decent score and should seat it that it places well on the rankings chart. In the Geekbench 4 CPU benchmark, it got a score of 809 single-core and 2,264 multi-core. Again, some decent scores that augurs well for the performance of this box. In the 3D Mark Gamers Bench GPU benchmark, which is my final benchmark, showed that it does not have Vulkan support, so it only qualified for the Ice Storm Extreme test and the Slingshot test. After all tests were completed, it got an Ice Storm Extreme score of 5,628 and 523 in the Slingshot test. These scores are also some decent scores and should see to it that it performs well in some 3D gaming. So that's it for the benchmarks, and let's now see where it places on the chart. So the scores are in, and the Topleo i96 Pro is at position 20 in reference to Antutu benchmark scores, which is among similar S905X3 boxes in its class. You can view this chart on my website in full spreadsheet format where you can view the top TV boxes for 2020 along with price comparison links. See the link in the description below this video. As I proceed, let's have a look at the root state of the box. In the Root Checker app, it shows that the box is rooted, running on Android 9 operating system. It does not have a root switch, which means apps that require your box not to be rooted will not work. Also, it's ill-advised not to attempt to update the SuperUser app in an attempt to unroot it, as it will put your box into a permanent boot loop that will require a flash of the firmware to restore it. Its DRM information shows that it has Google Widevine Level 3 with no HDCP protection, which is the case with most of these models, and this level of DRM affects its ability to play premium services such as Netflix and Amazon Prime Video in HD and 4K quality. Some of these services will work on this box, but they will be limited to basic resolution, whatever that is for each individual service. For compatibility with alternative launchers and live wallpapers, I installed the ADW Launcher 2, and it works with all features working such as long click menu pop-ups and drag and drop shortcuts. Also inspired from my last video, I installed the dynamic Square Home Launcher that also works with all features working that's compatible with this firmware. And finally, as you can see running in the background is the Galaxy Live wallpaper that works on both alternative launchers. However, this Live wallpaper does not work on the stock launcher. One thing I did not know about this Live wallpaper is that it interacts with your mouse pointer. For those who use their monitors vertically and would like to use this box to rotate the display to portrait mode, I'm sorry to report that screen rotation does not work on this box. For those of you who are familiar with streaming movies and TV shows, by now you already know that premium services such as Netflix and Amazon Prime Video will only show in basic 480p quality. For those of you who are new to TV boxes and may be wondering if you can use your Netflix accounts on this box, you can. But please note that this box is not Google certified, so even if you have a premium account, you won't be able to watch movies in HD or 4K quality because it lacks the required DRM support and protection against piracy. So for users of Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, and any other premium service, you will be limited to basic quality only. The Android TV version of YouTube comes pre-installed, but I strongly advise that you uninstall this version and install the version from the Aptoid App Store that plays 4K videos in HDR quality. I don't know what's the difference with this version on the Aptoid App Store compared to other versions, but this version, when playing a 4K video in HDR format, it triggers the HDR icon on my LG TV. This does not happen with other versions. The included remote shown in the introduction is a wireless remote with Google Assistant feature with some dedicated Netflix, Google Play Store and YouTube buttons. Here I'm demonstrating the Air Mouse feature and it's very responsive. The Netflix and Google Play Store dedicated buttons work to open the apps, but the YouTube button doesn't respond to open the YouTube app. The Google Assistant's voice control function also works. What is the fastest car in the world?
Here's a summary from CBS News. 1. Bugatti Veyron Supersport. The fastest car in the world, Bugatti Veyron Supersport, can reach a speed of 267 miles per hour.
The box comes pre-installed with the official version of Miracast that plays in HD quality. Here I'm casting my cell phone and it works without issues. I connected my webcam to the box and I tried to use it in Facebook, but Facebook failed to recognize the webcam. I will now play some 4K videos in HDR format to test how the box handles the playback.
And only a win for Barca would be enough, because it would give them the same number of points as Atletico, but the head-to-head goal difference is what counts in the case of a tie on points. The mosaic of the Camp Nou and the Barcelona hymn being sung as referee Mateo Laoz prizing presence on the bench as well. Atletico playing in yellow, Barca in their traditional red.
So that went really well, much better than I expected. The 4K playback was smooth and of a high quality, and the HDR icon was also triggered on my TV. And now I will test its digital audio surround sound output by connecting it to my receiver in HDMI pass-through configuration and using the VLC player with audio pass-through enabled in the settings area. In this test, I'll be testing for Dolby Atmos, DTS-X, DTS HD Master Audio, THX, and Dolby TrueHD.
This is Dolby Atmos, the world's first object-based cinematic audio. With powerful moving audio that transcends from channels to moving around you with pinpoint accuracy.
Juries, executioners, judges.
Welcome to the inside of your head. channel. Next.
So this test confirms that the i96 Pro can produce Dolby Atmos, DTS:X, DTS:X HD Master Audio, and THX, and as expected, I did not get Dolby TrueHD. I now play some Android games to test its 3D graphics handling, gamepad key mapping, and for overheating.
Enemy contact! I'm hurt! Changing mag! Good shot! Down! Need backup! Koyos. Striding forward, face has a goal! And he nearly went all the way.
Oh, that's an excellent try, and once he picked it up, he headed forward with real intent.
Koyos. Oh, Koyos! And surely this time, he has done it! And they're at it again, in double quick time.
The games played okay. However, depending on which game you are playing, you can see temperatures rising as high as 80 degrees Celsius. Also, gamepad key mapping apps worked well on this box. In summary, the Topleo i96 Pro would appear to be your typical Amlogic S905X3 TV box. It does not have all the bells and whistles of a premium firmware such as a root switch, Samba server settings, built-in screen rotation, a navigation bar and status bar, and hardware monitor settings. The box is, however, great for streaming. It plays 4K videos better than I expected. It has killer Wi-Fi reception on both bands and a gigabit LAN port. It comes with a Google Assistant Air Mouse remote, and it can even play Android games really well with gamepad key mapping. They could have done a better job with the firmware, adding some more unique features which would have complemented its unique design. And the bottom panel should have had some ventilation holes which would have made heat management a bit better. And with that said, I've come to the end of my review. If you were looking for this box online to purchase, you would find it very difficult to do so as it's currently out of stock on Amazon.com and from the Chinese retailers. You can use the link in the description to check when stock becomes available. Thanks for watching. Give this video the thumbs up if you enjoyed the content produced in this video and it proved useful. If you are a first-time viewer or a regular viewer and have not yet subscribed, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell before leaving to be notified when I release new videos or decide to do a giveaway. Stay tuned, stay safe, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.